really on the 29th when Venus makes a half square to Mars and Chiron while Mars is joining up with Chiron. This is another round of the wound coming to the surface, of meeting a block, of having to overcome some pattern that has something to do with the past. The past is coming round. It's like in our face. We have to deal with it. There's not an easy way to resolve this, but we have to figure out something because we have to move through this. But as we get to the 30th, we can see not only that the moon is in mid-Pisces, 10 degrees of Pisces, midday on Thursday the 30th, but what we're also seeing now is that Mercury is now catching up with Uranus. This is not exact until 10:53 p.m., but for all practical purposes, Mercury aligning with Uranus in Taurus is kind of giving us, we're going to state in a way like lightning striking or be struck with an awareness of some information that's going to be grounded. We're not going to be able to just shake it off easily. And yet at the same time, Jupiter in Gemini is inching closer and closer to its trine with Pluto. And that trine, as I mentioned earlier, is not exact until the beginning of June. The exact trine is on June 2nd, June 3rd. But we're going to be feeling that already. And so we have the spark of the Mercury, which is the communicator. Remember, Mercury is electricity and Uranus is the nervous system. The nervous system requires the spark of electricity to drive the electricity that's distributed through the nervous system. And so we're having something here that's like an awakening, and yet at the same time, Jupiter coming into that trine to Pluto, we're not going to be able to go back. We're learning something here, and these things are kind of being seeded in a way that is going to be important, I think. And again, I said at the very opening that a lot of what's going on in April kind of sets the tone with the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction for the Pluto in Aquarius. And then as the planets move into Gemini and trine Pluto in Aquarius, even though it's retrograde, again, it's still it's barely moved a degree for the entire month. I mean, not even that. It's barely moved. It's barely moved a 1/10 of a degree in the entire month of May, and so all these planets connecting up with Pluto is very crucial, because remember, these are setting up events not only that will be important when Pluto dips back into Capricorn in September, October, November, and then back into Aquarius in December, but also over the years ahead when Uranus, following in a much slower wave, moves out of Taurus and into Gemini. This is going to be incredibly important, because Uranus will actually move into Gemini in about a year down the road, in June, July of 2025. And as it does, it will then begin a several-year run of its trine with Pluto that will be incredibly important. We'll talk more about that as things unravel or unravel and then re-entangle and re-ravel over the months and even years ahead. Extraordinary times as we think about the month. Coming into the month, there's just so much dynamic transition and change. It's just, again, it boggles the mind. On the other hand, there's potential for real movement here, but we have to do something about it. And with that stated, I bow my head with utmost respect to those people who are putting their comfort on the line in one way or another, standing up for what they believe to be important as we move through this period of time. And again, I know some of these things go touch very, very deep, and people have very strong beliefs that are part of their value structures, especially because we have this alignment in Taurus that we're still working on, the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in Taurus. But there's this sense of something is happening that is setting the tone for an awakening, an opening, a movement into a future, whether you like it or not. Things are moving in a new direction. And that direction may not be new in as much as you can see foreshadowings back 100 years. But the fact, or even more, but the fact is that something's happening now that's akin to what was going on back in the late 1700s, around the time of the American and French revolutions. And no one at that time could have imagined how huge those transitions would have been over the centuries that followed. And I would suggest that the same thing is happening now, especially since Pluto's move into Aquarius in some ways is tickling, is foreshadowing, is resonating to the larger, deeper changes that we can't even begin to imagine of what the Aquarius age will bring over the centuries and even the millennia ahead.